I wasn't planning on doing another Spaces. When I said I was done, at that time I meant it. But today we had a world event happen that's going to have ramifications on everybody, whether they know it or not. Today, Lord Rothschild is dead. A new baron of the Rothschild family will be appointed. And when that happens, new people come in and new people have new ideas. So while the Rothschild's plan and the New World Order's plan can be generational, they always have a plan A, plan B, plan C. And when you have a new person on top, well, guess what happens? Sometimes they go with plan B. I'll give you an example. Project Bluebeam. Project Bluebeam, in case people don't know what that is they're planning on putting holographic images of Jesus or Buddha or whoever the other religious figures are and making people believe that we're having a alien invasion and Christ is here to save us. This is on the New World Order's agenda. They've been planning this for a long time. But here's the thing. The new Rothschild in power might want to go with plan B and plan C. So you see, what happens at the very top of the game has ramifications for all of us, not just us, our kids and our grandkids as well. The Rothschilds are what people call the Pinzer of the 13 bloodline families. What you have to understand about these families is they don't necessarily like each other. You know, a good analogy is how the mafia families worked in New York. The Gambino family and other families, they didn't necessarily all like each other, yet they all met and they all made plans together. Some of them had more weight than others by far, but they all met and they all made plans together. And when someone went after them as a collective, they came together like fingers on a fist. They clenched and they went to war. So what's happening right now is we have two scenarios. First and most likely scenario, that is a new member of the Rothschild family becomes the head, and he is the one who might be weaker or stronger than the last guy. Obviously, at this point, probably weaker. Or maybe the guy, Lord Rothschild, the one who just passed, was a puppet like the king of Saudi Arabia and the crown prince, whoever comes to power now, was always the power to begin with for the past 10 or 15 years. We don't know, okay? We can only speculate. If people tell you they know, they're lying to you, okay? There's only some things we know. We know about structure. We don't know exactly what's happening. But the first most likely scenario is a new guy comes to power and he probably has some different ideas of how to attain their end goals. The second possibility, less likely, but still possible, is the other sharks, the other 12 bloodlines might think the Rothschilds are weak. And if that happens, well, someone's going to test that chin. Now, it seems unlikely, but again, that is a very strong possibility out of the possibilities that are out there. Right now, the Lee family in China, maybe the Rockefeller family in America. Maybe one of these families has new blood, and they're like, you know what? Let's test the Rothschilds. I'll give you an example. A lot of you guys watch Game of Thrones. Well, when it came down to it, the people who had the dragons made the rules. But once the dragons died, after a while, there was a rebellion and they lost. And then the Lannisters took power, in a sense. So what you people have to understand is there will be changes. We just don't know if they're subtle or not. Now, what are the signs that we can look for? If we see new wars breaking out, if we see financial collapses in certain nations or in certain companies, that's most likely one of two things. The Rothschilds sending a message, a preemptive strike, or someone's going after the Rothschilds' interest. Now, I'm educated enough to know what companies are aligned with who and what is aligned with the other side. Most of you have no clue, so don't even try to make a rationale out of all this. But we're going to have some serious changes if people, kind of feel weak. See, if the Rothschilds family is strong right now, nothing will happen. Absolutely nothing will happen except maybe some policy changes. If the Rothschild family is weak right now, either the Rothschilds are going to strike to compensate or someone's going to test them. Now, what would a testing look like? It would most likely look like a financial collapse, or maybe people start shorting a certain company. Maybe people start pulling liquidity from a certain company, whether it be Applebee's or, that's a bad example. What the fuck am I talking about? Whether it be a company like AT&T or maybe Amazon or maybe something to do with Tesla. Certain people own those stocks. Certain people own those companies, and maybe those are proxies for the Rothschilds or for someone else. I will tell you this. If we have a peace deal in the next couple of months, that's because the leadership of the Rothschilds demands it. That I will tell you 100% for sure. If we have what people call a peace treaty come together in the next couple months, the Rothschilds are fully in control, and the new head of the Rothschild family wants to go another way. Now, what would be the most drastic event that could happen if people want to test the Rothschilds? Not just from a financial standpoint. What would be the most drastic thing that could happen? Power outages, people attacking the infrastructure, or China testing Taiwan. Those could be some of the things out there that people could look for if there's going to be another change. Now, also take a look at Biden at this point. And dear Secret Service, this is just speculation. Thank you. People need to understand that the president of the United States at this point is a puppet, is a complete and utter puppet. Some people can say Donald Trump was fully in charge, but, he was just a guy with less strings than all the others. He had a little streak of independence, but, when it came to that vax, he tapped out quick, didn't he? So he was a president with limits. He could do good things, but it was limited what he could do. The last real president was John F. Kennedy. And that's because he had his daddy, who basically owned so many politicians, had so much money. John F. Kennedy thought he was untouchable. He thought he could fucking go to war and there would be no consequences. And, if there was a real president, the last real president in American history, it was definitely, the 7 life path snake, John F. Kennedy, born on the 29th. It was definitely him. But he had major backup. The Kennedy family is right up there in the Illuminati bloodline. They're right there. Okay. That was probably the last attempt to take America away from the Rockefeller family in the 60s, who were very much under the Rothschilds. The Rothschilds owned Europe a long time ago. The Rothschilds owned Europe in the 1800s. After Waterloo, and Napoleon, stuff like that, they completely owned fucking Europe. It took them until 1913 to get most of America. But even then, someone like JFK could break through and do something. But ever since they basically took him out, there's pretty much been no opposition. The only opposition you can say was maybe on a very small level, Ross Perot. If you guys remember him, he was a billionaire who was running as independent, and he looked like he was going to win against Clinton and Bush. And then someone knocked on the door, and the guy who was in second place as an independent dropped out the next day. They basically told him, listen, you do this, this is what's going to happen. That's how it works. That's how it works. When I had my interview with Malik Obama, I did my due diligence. I called people who are connected with people to make sure I'm not fucking doing things that are going to jeopardize anything. That's the price you pay. That is the price you fucking pay. You know, I mean, think about it this way. Elon Musk has this account blocked. Numerology Now is blocked by Elon Musk. Remember, porn is okay on Twitter. Porn is 100% fine. How many of you guys go out there and make tweets and all of a sudden there's OnlyFans girls fucking in the replies trying to get fucking simps? That's okay. Having Alex Jones is okay. Having neo-Nazis is okay. It's just Gary Grinberg that isn't. Hey, it's all right. It's 100% all right. I'm going to tell you why. Because what goes around comes around, which brings us back to Lord Rothschild. You know, Lord Rothschild was 87 years old. And whether you like the man, he was Lord Rothschild because he actually did run things. We don't have to like the king, but we still call him the king because that's what he is. So let's get that out the way first. But when it comes down to it, he died in 2024, 8. The news of his death came out on the 26th. 2 and 6 is 8. This is 100% karma-based and financial-based. This is 100% one of those things. I encourage people to start looking at the financial sector every single day, seeing how the banks are doing. Not just Wall Street. You better start paying attention to the DAX. You better start fucking paying attention to the FTSE. You better start paying attention to the whole fucking world. You know, in the 1990s, it was America, and then, you know, you had London, and, you know, Germany, and that was pretty much it. There's no other financial capital in the world. You know, I kind of feel sad for the Americans growing up now. You know, I was born in 78, so I actually remember the 90s. I remember when America was the number one power in the world to the point where it was unchallenged. Right now, America's challenged. It's still the number one power, but it's challenged. Back then, it was unchallenged. Absolutely unchallenged. I remember the early 90s. Everyone had money. And remember, I grew up poor. So everyone had money in the hood. Everyone's driving their Ford Explorer SUVs. Everyone was fucking going. The economy was booming. No one challenged America. And through the years, they started to feminize America. And the Rockefellers who did that, it came back to haunt them. The Rockefellers are the ones who pushed, you know, they were running America more than the Rothschilds in the late 1800s, early 1900s. And what they didn't really bend the knee until 2000 to the Rothschilds. When Chase Manhattan merged, that's when they bent the knee, at least, you know, to the powers that be. But let's be honest, folks. The Rockefellers ran this shit, and then they started feminism, women's right to vote, and what happened? Those same feminized women started voting for Barack, not Hillary Clinton. See, in 2008, it was not just the Clintons against the Obamas. It was the Rothschilds against the Rockefellers. That was the Rockefellers' last hurrah. If you guys are ever familiar with the show Transformers, think of the Rothschilds as Megatron and the Rockefellers as Starscream. A disloyal number 2, but still useful enough because no one else can do what he does. So that's why I don't get rid of them. Because if the Rockefellers ever got rid of, if the Rothschilds ever got rid of the Rockefellers, there would be complete disarray in the United States of America. All their minions would go to war. You couldn't control it. So they keep them around because it will be less. They know they're an enemy, but their enemy they can see. So when the Rothschilds and Rockefellers, again, were going to war in 2008 through their proxies, the Clintons and the Obamas, the Rockefellers never imagined that all these feminists that they've been fucking brainwashing for years would vote for the black gay man instead of the woman. It's just comical. Comical. They never saw it coming. These people thought they're going to go back in the White House and do what they needed to do. Wrong. They tried again in 2016. Uh-oh. Obama's out the way. What are they going to do now? They would rather give it to Trump than give it to the Rockefellers fucking Clinton in 2016. The Rockefellers have been taking L's after L after L against the fucking Rothschilds for nearly a goddamn decade. If you guys are into wrestling, you know that guy who fucking always fucking wrestles the star and gets his ass whooped within 3 minutes and then gets pinned, that journeyman. That's what the Rockefellers are compared to the Rothschilds. But now we're going to find out what's going on in world history. Now we're going to find out if all the people who've been saying, the Rothschilds are done, the Rothschilds are done, the Rothschilds are done. I've heard this shit for fucking 3 decades. Every year they're going to lose power and all this other stuff. Now we'll find out if those people are right. Because if there's going to be a shakeup, it's going to happen when Tywin Lannister dies. Do you guys understand the metaphor? Tywin Lannister was the head of the Lannister family. When he was around, the Lannister family was feared. When he died, those idiot kids of his fucking, it was all over real quick. I'm going to give you an example of how this happened already in world history. You know, there was another bloodline family. There was another bloodline family out there. And they got eliminated. Interestingly enough, they start with RO, just like Rothschild, just like Rockefeller. They were called the Romanov family. And they led the Soviet Union bloc of the New World Order. It was Russia back then, again, Soviet Union, Russia. Soviet Union was when it was over. But the king of Russia, the Tsar of Russia, the Romanov family, they were in charge in the 1850s when the Rothschilds already took power, the Bank of England after Waterloo, controlled France, and they wanted to control Italy and some of the Central Powers at the time. So what happened was the Romanov family saw that they were trying to create a central bank where they would control everything. See, when you have a central bank and you can't control your central bank, you can't address your problems. Sometimes your economy is overheating. Sometimes your economy needs to be inflated with money. You can't make those decisions when you don't control your own central bank as a nation. Just like the European Union. They don't own shit. Brussels does. So they were trying to create that in the 1800s, and the Romanovs family said, fuck you. And he took his allies with him. And the Lord Rothschild at that time was a powerful man, nowhere near as powerful as now, but he was a powerful man. And he said that I curse your family and I will eradicate your bloodline. Well, about 60 years ago, after that, World War I started. And the idiot who was in charge of the Romanov family, you guys can look at his numerology yourself and laugh. Yeah, I know. Yep, another one. He was a weak fucking man. And he collapsed under pressure. And when he collapsed, first there was a provisional government, and then the Bolsheviks basically took him. And they killed him, and they eradicated his bloodline. And the Bolsheviks did that under orders from the Rothschilds. This is what happened. This is real history. They ain't gonna teach you this shit in schools. This is what happened. And one of the great families, the Romanovs, were eliminated. Now, there are rumors that a certain princess was escaped, and she's married to one of the U.S. presidents, but that's a story for another day. So now we're in that pivotal moment in history again when Romanov might be Rothschild. But the chances of that are very, very slim. But we're going to find out in the next 33 days, next moon cycle. Because if we have big events by that time, and you're going to have to distinguish what big events are. Obviously, if you have a fucking, a war star in Nepal or some other bullshit, we don't know if that's the big event that's going to trigger it. But I gave you some examples of what would. The king is dead. And when Queen Elizabeth died, that's a puppet, man. That's a puppet. Powerful puppet, but a puppet. Today, a lot of people's Emperor Palpatine died. And now we're going to find out if Darth Vader can be an Emperor Palpatine. Because if he can't, he'll be Sith, and we'll have a new bloodline family that's going to come from those 12. It's always going to come from one of the 13 families. That's not going to change. This has been a GG333 production.